Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us this morning for first in our DDO Masterclass series on creating best practice target market determinations. I'm Andrew Chamberlain. I'm part of the founding team here at Skyjed, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Leica Ison, who is our CEO, and Sivam-Raja, who is our Senior Customer Success Manager. So hi both. Thanks for joining us today. So hello to everyone. A couple of housekeeping items before we kick off today. You'll notice there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please enter any questions you have in there and we'll do our best to answer those at the end of the session today. And hopefully as we go through the session, they will get answered. But if we run out of time, we will make sure we come back to you this afternoon with answers on those. And finally, as you may have heard, we are recording the session today. We'll make that available on our website as soon as it's ready. And we'll also send out a link to everyone who's registered today as well. So that will probably come through about tomorrow morning. So you'll be able to share that with other members of your team if you like as well. Now, before I hand over to Leica, I thought I'd just give you some context on why we have started this Masterclass series. Over the past almost 2 years now, we've been talking to a lot of financial institutions, both large and small and everything in between. And it's become very, very clear when it comes to product governance and DDO compliance that there are some really common areas that people are struggling and finding difficult to navigate. Some of those around the TMDs, as we're talking today, but there's also some other common areas as well that we'll be covering off in the rest of our Masterclass series over the next couple of months. So that's why we've commenced that series, and we're starting today with target market determinations, and we'll talk about the next one that's coming up in a couple of weeks at the end of this today. So with that, thanks for joining us again, and I'd love to hand over to Leica to start the presentation. Over to you, Leica.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. I'm Leica, and I'm going to kick straight off with this masterclass. So I'm going to cover 3 things today. I'm going to pull apart a target market determination. I'm just going to have a look at what goes in that target market, what's the purpose of it from a product management perspective. But I'm going to spend most of my time in the masterclass stepping through in quite a lot of detail a target market determination. And as I step through each of those components, I'm just going to highlight for you, as Andrew said, some of those challenges that we're seeing across the various industries. And also I'm going to offer some tips as to how you address that when you're setting up your product governance and your target market determination. So those 3 things, I'll probably spend about 20 to 30 minutes on the detailed walkthrough of the examples so that we can have some good discussion around that and take questions at the end. So before I dive into the target market determination, I just wanted to kick off with these 4 steps around a product governance framework. So as Andrew said, we've been out there working with businesses and particularly product teams over the last 18 months. And it doesn't matter if it's across superannuation, banks, buy now, pay later. There are some real challenges with operationalising your DDO or your product governance. So to help with that, what we've done for product teams is we've really broken it down into these nice 4 key stages that you can use in your product teams to operationalise this across the organisation. So the first one of those phases is kicking off. Obviously today we're talking about creating those target market determinations and getting those reviewed inside your organisation before you publish them externally. The second step here really about how do we share out that information to our distribution channel when we've set those conditions, and looking at triggers. And I'm going to speak quite a lot today about the triggers because I think they're an important area. Now, the third phase in operationalising this product governance is around monitoring, setting that nice, clear monitoring cycle of your products after you're launched and when they're out in those distribution channels. And then finally, all of the record keeping that we need. So I do know what it's like to be a product leader when you stretch really thin, and often pulling together all the records that you need for compliance across various shared drives is a real challenge. So today I'm going to look at how we can manage that really effectively in some of these examples. So that's just a quick framework of how you can operationalize a product governance framework in your product teams. Now, today I am going to sort of, as I said, start and pull apart what goes in a target market determination. So again, just to frame this up, we all know that we have to set target market determinations for our products. So before I dive into an example, I always like to get clear with the product teams that I'm working with the sort of 5 key components that go in your target market determination. So kicking off, being really clear about those class of customers, understanding your target market. Again, that's a standard thing that we do as product leaders. And of course, for DDO, we know there's a few extra components that need to go into describing that class of customers. Secondly, we've got to understand our distribution conditions. And again, this is a core product management activity as we set our product strategy, really understanding what are the best channels for us to use for our product strategy. And in this area, again, it's just adding in some key areas of being clear about those distribution conditions and restrictions. And again, we'll take a look at some great examples of those shortly. The third area around review triggers. The review triggers, again, we'll look at some examples, but for me, the review triggers are about giving you advanced warning or early warning that you've got some challenges in your product strategy. So again, a core product management activity, and we'll look at how you set your review triggers for DDO. The fourth area is the review frequencies. So we know when we set these target market determinations, we've got to do a first review, and that again, set your ongoing reviews of your product throughout the year. And then finally, the distribution information. So this area, as we set it and think through what we need, it's really about what type of information do we need back from that distribution channel as product leaders? What sort of things do we have to look at? And then really importantly, lining that up for the reporting periods that we need for our product reviews. So I like to just think about those sort of 5 key components of the things that we need to cover off in a target market determination. So let's just have a look at an example here before we do the walkthrough. So in this target market determination template, we start off with setting that target market. So we know we're looking at the customer characteristics, and really the purpose of this section for our product teams is to understand our customers. And again, this is a core product management activity, understanding those customers, their characteristics and their needs, and you'll be doing that in your segmentation. But we're also adding in here, looking at our product attributes and variations, and we'll talk more about those as we go along. So if I was just to summarize, the purpose of this section when you're going in to write it down is really understanding that customer, but also ensuring that you've got a good fit between your product and your value proposition and that target customer. So that's the first area. The next area is around that distribution information. So we know when we're setting our product strategies, we know our distribution channels, but we've got to think about what sort of information do we want back from that distribution channel that's going to let us know that we've got some challenges with the health of our products. We've got some great examples of that shortly. Now, this area around the distribution conditions, for product teams, this is probably a new area that we've got to consider when we're setting our product strategies and selecting the distribution channels that we're going to use for our product, and setting these conditions about how the product is sold. So when we think about how our products are sold into the distribution channel, that's also including the awareness and consideration and the marketing activities that we're experiencing in those distribution channels. Now, the next area is these review triggers. Now, we're setting these review triggers to give us advanced warning that there's some challenges in our product strategy. Now, I really like these review triggers. They're a really important part of DDO. But some of the examples I'm going to take you through, I just think they're a great tool for product teams to use also for the growth of their product strategy, because the advantage of using these review triggers is that we're all really busy, there's a lot going on, but the advantage of these review triggers is that just helps us be a little bit more proactive around reviewing and monitoring our product strategy, and also just gives us that early warning that we need to optimize our product strategy. We've launched the product, we're clear about the distribution channels that we want to use, we've worked with our legal teams on the distribution conditions, the product's out there, we're monitoring it, we're really busy. You might have lots of products in your portfolio. So these review triggers, when they're set up and automated, and I'll show you some examples of those, you can get that nice early warning and then jump into your product strategy and do some root cause analysis about what's going on. And then the final area, again, around the review frequencies. So setting that nice cadence for the review of your product. And again, when you're really busy and spread thin, doing these consistent sort of quarterly product reviews can be a challenge. So in these target market determinations, just thinking through for that product, how often does it need to be reviewed is an important part of the TMD. So that's just a frame of the key areas as we start to go in and set those target market determinations, some of the key components. Now, this leads me on just to reflect on some of the challenges that we're seeing out there as product teams and also risk teams start to work through their product portfolios. Some of the challenges we're seeing in setting up that product governance, I guess, but particularly around the target market determinations. So I've just listed up here, I guess, as a bit of an introduction, some of the challenges we're seeing. So the three key ones that I'm going to go through today is just some real challenges around your target market definition. The second area is about, just knowing how deep do you go with the detail in your target market determinations? How much is enough? What detail do you need in each of the sections? And then finally, as we're setting the target market determinations, I'm also seeing some real themes around those trigger areas that I talked about and the importance of monitoring. So I'll step through now just some examples of those challenges, and then we'll go through some tips of how to address them. So look, this first challenge is really around the first section in your target market determination, and that's setting this target market, understanding those customers. So what I'm seeing here is a bit of a trend to set your target market determination at a portfolio level. Now, whilst you're really busy and you're kicking this off, that might make a whole lot of sense and it's probably a good place to start. But if you're setting a TMD at a portfolio level and you're having the same TMD for all the products in that portfolio, so if I've got a product portfolio, it might be around loans, and in that portfolio I might have 20 products. So what I'm seeing in some areas that teams are challenged from a time point of view. So they're creating one TMD and applying it to all the products in that target market determination. So the challenge with this is that as you get to your monitoring stage and setting those triggers, it's just going to make it more challenging to be able to do your effective monitoring and set those review triggers. And then I guess also, from a product management perspective, if we've got a product portfolio and we've got a number of products in that, if we're saying that they've all got the same target market, they've all got the same features and characteristics, you'd sort of step back from a product management perspective and say, well, if I'm not actually differentiating those products, it just doesn't make sense, or they're right for consolidation. So setting those target market determinations, firstly at a portfolio level, but then getting down into the specifics of setting them at a product level. Now, the next challenge we're seeing around this target market determination, this section, is around clustering or getting confusion around the difference between a product feature and some of the variations in that product, some of the variants that are there. And I'm going to step through this in a bit of an example later, but I guess just to summarize, what we are seeing is that when you're setting that product, and that might be, say, a personal loan in this example, you have variations like it can be a fixed loan or a variable loan, but then also you'll have some attributes that may mean that you have a different customer segment and therefore a different target market. So we'll step through some examples of that in a moment. So really it's that sort of confusion and clustering of the products at that portfolio level, but then getting confusion around what is a variant versus what is a product and what is a feature in those products. Now, the next area we're seeing some challenges is around these review triggers. Now, as I mentioned, I actually think these review triggers are a fantastic tool for product managers, just to get you on the front foot so you're more proactive around your product strategy. The challenge is, how do we set those effectively across our product portfolios? Now, again, a couple of challenges that I'm seeing here is that when we're setting the review triggers, we're setting them quite broadly. So a review trigger, I'm seeing in some instances a broad definition that is, say, saying a significant number of customer complaints. So the statement of a significant number of customer complaints just isn't granular enough. We need to be able to put data points around these so we can measure them. So a significant amount of customer complaints might be 10 or it might be 100 for your product. So really getting granular around setting those review triggers. Now, the second area that I'm seeing is that teams are setting the same review triggers across all of their products. So it makes sense as we think about the different products that we've got in our portfolio. They're going to be at different life stages. You might have a recently launched product versus a very mature product. So again, from a product management perspective, in terms of wanting early warning of challenges with that product in your distribution channel, a recently launched product, a trigger or number of customer complaints for that product is going to look very different to a mature product. So getting granular and making those really specific to the life stage of the product. The other area that we're seeing here is a reliance on just looking at customer complaints as a review trigger. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a good indicator of product health. It actually is, but it's a bit of a lagging indicator. So there are some other great examples that we'll go through today of setting review triggers that just go beyond those customer complaints. So if we think about the distribution of our products out there, we've launched them, what are some of the other indicators that we might have some challenges with our product strategy and how we're differentiating that? Obviously, looking at your sales data is another good area to sort of drill down on. And when I think about the sales data, there's a common theme to look at value of sales, like how much revenue, but also complementing that with looking at changes in the profile of your product forecast and looking at those profiles in terms of changes in your underlying product physicals. And when I say your underlying product physicals, I mean things like your number of services in operation. Are they spiking, or are you seeing lots of cancellation of your product out there in the distribution channel? These can be great things to put these triggers around and get quite granular just beyond your customer complaints. So just finally on these triggers, just to really reinforce this challenge with setting those data points. So starting off with the data points, selecting number of customer complaints, if you're looking at customer complaints, thinking about the life stage of the product, and then monitoring those thresholds with a tool. I guess in terms of these review triggers, so we've set our target market, we've looked at some of the challenges with the review triggers. The other thing we're seeing, and it's really worth just keeping at the back of your mind as a product leader, as we're going through our DDO requirements, we're setting those target markets. When we hit those review triggers, as product leaders, we have to make one of 5 decisions around our product. So if I've launched a product, I've set that target market, I've set my review triggers, I've received a notification in my digital tool that I've hit a review trigger. So what I really need to do as a strategic product leader is go through and complete a review of my product. I mean, look at that product strategy, how I'm differentiating the product, but then make one of these. Do I make no change around the product? Have I got a risky distribution channel that I need to go and look at? Is the target market, does that need reviewing? Do I have to look at my value proposition? Am I looking at changing the product design? So again, these are standard things as a product leader you'd be thinking about if you've got challenges in your distribution channels and with your customers. So we need to kind of keep in mind that at the end of this process with our monitoring and our triggers, that we need the data to be able to effectively make one of these 5 decisions. So 5 choices as a product leader. Okay, so I've just gone through some of those challenges that we've seen. So I guess the question is, how do we solve some of those challenges as we go in to set up our target market determinations? And one of the things that we're finding really useful is to take this initial step to resolve some of these issues. Just take this initial step to frame up a hierarchy around your in-scope products and your product portfolios, and just to have a look at a hierarchy that steps you through each of these areas to be able to avoid some of that confusion. So I'm just going to step you through this hierarchy, and as we work with customers in setting up their product governance, I like to call this sort of phase 0. So you as a product leader, you've worked with your legal and regulatory teams. You've got a really clear scope of the list of products that are in scope for DDO. The next thing I like to do is to list out the portfolios so that we know a product portfolio is a category of products. They might be a capability center, but they have a core value proposition in common. So I like to list out the portfolio. The next area is really just to frame up the core product features. So the core product and its features, and then look at the target market for that product. You will have had segmentation across your organisation that you're focusing on for your product. So setting that clear target market. And then the next is to list out and think about what are the variations on that product and product features. And these variations, I like to think about them as customer choices at the time of purchase. So we know for these variations that they don't require a separate target market determination, but they're obviously an important part of the definition and listing out your target market determinations. And then if I just bring all of that together, so if we step through this hierarchy before we start filling out our target market determinations, this is a bit of a holistic review of it. So we've been clear about our in-scope products, we're clear about our portfolios, we've listed out the product features, and we've had a look at that target market. And when we look at that target market, it's the customer characteristics. We've listed out the variations, and then this final point of the excluded target market. So if I just touch on that excluded target market, again, when I think about the excluded target market, I always like to compare that back to the target market, and they almost should mirror each other. So for example, in your target market, a really easy one is the customer being over a certain age, in this example, over 18 years of age. Obviously, if you're thinking about the excluded target market, it's the reverse of that. So I'm setting a nice, clear data point that they're under the age of 18. And there's lots of other examples of that. But if we mirror those across and check them against our target market, it gives us more clarity with that exclusions and what we need to focus on. Now, the same thing here with the variations. So there is a big difference between a variation and a product feature. And the way I like to think about that is that if I've got a variation in the product, when I go and look at the target market, it actually is consistent. So a good example of that would be a variation on a personal loan is to be able to have fixed or variable as a choice when I'm selecting that product as a customer, but also the area of a secured or unsecured loan. So the key question that I'd ask myself here is secured and unsecured, is that a variation, or is that actually a separate product that needs a different target market? So, just to test that, so for a secured loan versus an unsecured loan, are the types of customers and their characteristics and their situations, are they very different? So if I'm offering a secured loan or an unsecured loan, are they variations, or indeed, if they're different target markets and customer characteristics, we need to be able to pull out a separate target market determination for those. So that's a good example. So we're seeing with this hierarchy, just spending some time on that hierarchy up front, mapping out those from that portfolio down to those variations, and just getting clear definitions in your team as to how you're going to categorize each of those areas. What we're seeing is that's saving product teams a lot of time as they go through the review and approval of the target market determinations with their legal teams. And it also, it just makes it easier to work across your product teams to fill them out and complete them. We're also, I guess the other benefit of this is when we eventually, post-October, get to the stage of undertaking our monitoring and jumping on those review triggers when they occur, if we've got really clear definitions around those product features, we're able to set our review triggers more clearly with great data points around the thresholds that we're going to be monitoring. And then, of course, if we're adding in product features and new products, it just makes it easier to be able to scale that up. That's just a quick overview of the components of the target market, some of the challenges we're seeing, and the benefits of kickstarting on that phase 0, using a bit of a framework or a hierarchy to be able to set yourself up before you start documenting and monitoring those target markets. So what I want to do now, that sort of finishes the sort of introduction. Now I'm going to step into looking at a detailed example of setting a target market determination and how you would operationalise that across your product team, but also work with your legal and compliance team on the monitoring and reporting of those target market determinations. So in this example I'm about to walk through, I guess it doesn't really matter what templates we're using for our target market determination. In this example that I'm about to go through in terms of using a digital tool to set up those target market determinations, it really doesn't matter what TMD templates that you're using. We've been able to import in FSC ABA templates or custom templates that you've created yourself to be able to manage those target market determinations in an ongoing way. So the example I'm going to walk through today is each of those components, but if we just sort of start off on this example, what you can see on your screen as I talk through it, I've got an example here, which is a personal loan. I've called it Bank ABC's personal loan. You can see here on the screen, just over on the left-hand side is that purple sidebar, and that's giving me a set of tools. I've got a list of all the products here that I have in scope for DDO. I've got all the actions and comments because I will have invited in my legal team to sign off on and approve this target market determination before I publish it. And I've got all the reporting automated that I need for DDO as a product leader to share in with my risk teams and to update executives. So you can see in this example, right in the middle of the screen is this design. So in this example, in this product strategy, I've got this design workspace that I'm using to set my target market determinations. And under this design, I have the ability to be able to set up the templates. And in this example, I'm going to step through each of those templates. So here, the first section in my product governance and my target market determination is making this statement around the target market and the consumers that are excluded, the product features, and the variations. So that's been set up in this template. You'll notice over in this info tab, I've got a nice description that's been put in here to tell me exactly what I need to put in this target market determination, this target market segment. So in this example, I guess in terms of tips and what we're seeing across the various industry sectors, as I mentioned earlier, it's really watching out for those product variations. When you're listing down your product variations, just testing to validate, are those variations in fact a different product with a different class of customers purchasing them? So the example that we talked about for this would be in a personal loan, that secured and unsecured personal loan are in fact they two different products that you'd be putting a separate target market around. And you can see in this example, I've just listed out here the summary. There's a little bit more detail in this example, but I've just summarized it up in this screenshot. So I've taken that first step in the design tab. I've ticked it off as done, that I've completed, and I've documented this first part of the target market determination. Now, the next area, I'm still in this design workspace. I'm using this tool to draft all this documentation in. I'm reviewing it with my marketing team, and then I go to that final stage of getting it signed off by my legal team. But in this next section, I'm listing down those distribution conditions and restrictions. So I start off here with the first step. I've listed out each of the distribution channels that I want to use for my product. I've thought about the cost effectiveness of those distribution channels to be able to reach my customers. And I've listed out 4 distribution channels here, you can see in this driver template. And I'm listing down the conditions for each of those distribution channels. I'm discussing those with my legal team and my sales team, but I'm listing out very specific conditions in this tab for those distribution conditions and restrictions on the sale of that product and the marketing of that product into the distribution channel. I've ticked that one off. I'm still in this design workspace, and then I'm moving down now to setting these review triggers. Now, the review triggers, as I said, I think these review triggers are a really important tool for your product growth as well as for meeting your DDO compliance. So in this driver, I've listed out, I'm just documenting some customer complaints, some sales data here, sales data in terms of volume, sales data in terms of value, obviously sales data in terms of sales to customers outside my target market. So I've listed those down. I've thought those through really clearly, and I'm putting in here, I'm listing out a threshold. And in this example, I've listed out 20 customer complaints as the threshold, and I put a rationale around why I'm selecting that, that threshold and that trigger. So once I've gone through and looked at those, I've also considered with the thresholds, as I said, these triggers are about giving you early warning. You've got a challenge, either you've got a risky product or a risky distribution channel, and you want to be able to get early warning of those. So there's some great flags that we can use as product leaders to start and understand if we've got challenges with the health of our product, just generally from a growth perspective, but also for DDO. So I've added in here things like Net Promoter Score. And when I'm setting the thresholds, I'm also looking at which of these triggers do I want to set and monitor on a monthly basis. And some of the other triggers, I'm looking at those in terms of trends over a three-month period. But I'm being quite specific about how I set those and then the percentage change in the trend. Now, the good thing about this, as I set them, I'm also able to set those up in an automated workflow so that I get an email notification when I've hit any of those review triggers. Now, I'm just stepping down. I'm still in this design workspace. I've now set my review frequency. And again, here, when I'm setting the review frequency, I'm setting that first review, and then I'm looking at the ongoing reviews of those products. So the first thing, I think the first tip here in terms of setting those ongoing reviews, you're really busy, you've got a lot going on. It's in terms of setting those reviews, not all products are equal. So when we think about setting those review frequencies, I always like to sort of, first of all, start with the product value, because that's important if it's a strategic product for your business. If it's a risky product or a recently launched product, I mean, obviously you'd be doing more frequent reviews of those. Some of those might be every 90 days, some of those might be every 6 months, and your more mature products, you might be completing a review of those, say, every 12 months. And as I set these up, the other advantage that I have is that, again, I can schedule them and get updates as to when those reviews are due. Now, the final area in this target market determination is that distributor information. So the key thing here that we need to be, I think, quite pragmatic about is, number one, the type of information that we want. So obviously customer complaints is a big one, the sales data, those significant dealings update. The second part of that is, when you need to get that information back into the product team to review. So if I've set a review frequency for a product to be every 90 days, logically I need to be able to get information back either on a quarterly or a monthly basis from my distributors. So I've got that data to be able to make the informed choices around the risk of the product and the risk of that distribution channel. So in this driver, I've just listed out the data type for the distributor and the reporting period of those. Now, just finally, the final part of the walkthrough of these target market determinations is to a tool that we're seeing is really popular, is using this lean canvas. Now, this lean canvas we're seeing is adding quite a lot of value to kick off before you actually set your target market determinations, to do workshops with your, say, your marketing teams or your customer experience teams, just to be able to frame up your product strategy and that business model. Just be clear about the customer problems that you're solving, your unique value proposition, just workshopping those. You might only be spending an hour or so filling this out, but it just helps you get a lot clearer before you actually step through those segments in the target market determination and set those distribution conditions. So that's proving to be a popular tool to use for that workshopping step as you start to set these target market determinations. I guess in terms of your target market determinations, we've stepped through those core areas that we need to cover off. Having been a sort of product leader myself, and you may have hundreds, if not thousands, of products in your portfolio, and you have your day job of your innovation and driving your revenue growth. And now we also want to be able to do a great job of managing the compliance for DDOs. So an important part of that is keeping the records and also having the data there that you need to make decisions. So the example that I've worked through in the Skyjed design workspace, it makes it really simple for us to be able to, at one click, to be able to export any of those records around our target market determination or the monitoring of our product. I can export those into a PDF. So we're finding that that's really useful internally. So if I have to go and report to a risk committee, or indeed even if I have to go to a pricing committee, I can export it out, all the details that I put in that target market determination, but also importantly, any of the comments and actions that have been set over that period, just export them out. And that's saving a significant amount of time in the reporting that you need for your DDO compliance. Now, just one other area that I guess I want to flag in terms of best practice, again, just on that theme of being, really busy, having a lot on, being spread too thin. I've stepped through each of the products in my portfolio. I've set those initial reviews and then the ongoing reviews. I might have 200 products in my portfolio. This is proving to be a really useful tool that we've got in the Skyjed design workspace, is that when you set and publish those target market determinations, you can see here we've created this event scheduler. So for my products, I can put in an event, I can color code that. So in this example, I've color coded everything that's related to DDO as red. I can schedule those as upcoming events. And the great thing here is that as a product owner or product leader, I can get a notification that I've got a product review coming up. So what that means when I get really busy, if I've committed to doing a review of this product in 6 months' time, I can get a notification 30 days earlier. I can jump in, I can notify my team that we've got a review to do, and I can keep all of that managed just in one workspace and just stay on the front foot and not miss those reviews that I've committed to. So just a really simple but excellent tool to be able to use to manage those target market determinations. Okay, so look, that's my quick walkthrough. I'm really interested to take any questions. I can deep dive in a whole lot more detail into any of those areas. We do have a whole number of guides that go down into detail around setting those target market determinations. But for today, that walkthrough of number one, just being clear about the hierarchy and the purpose of those target market determinations, some tips around setting those and defining your key detail around the target market determination, and also the importance of those review triggers as key takeaways, and also the advantage for product leaders as they operationalize this DDO to be able to have some digital tools to keep all of that in the one place, to be able to share out that information by publishing it, but also to be able to set those ongoing reviews and conduct them with the advantage of a time-saving digital tool. So, Andrew, that's the run through. I'll hand back over to you, and more than happy to take any questions on the areas that I've covered.
Yeah, certainly. Well, we might just take questions while we're sort of on that topic at the moment. So we do have a couple here. This is an interesting one. So what implementation support do you provide if we decide to use Skyjed? So that's something we didn't touch on today.
Yeah, sure. Using Skyjed, so we have a customer success framework that we use to help you onboard into Skyjed, but also to get you ready for DDOs. So we've set up that dedicated customer success, and some of the learnings and tools that I took you through today, obviously that's included in a staged program. We start off with that stage 0 that I talked about, where we help you frame up your hierarchies, we help you get all ready, we show you best practice examples, and we step through that with you and support you in terms of best practices and how to complete that.
That's terrific, Lisa. And we also do have an advanced onboarding program as well if you want some sort of hands-on consulting around that. And apologies to Sue, the NBN got the better of her, so she's dropped off. She actually runs that program for us. So if you are interested in some more information on that, please get in touch and I can set up a conversation with Sue around that as well. So that'd be terrific. This was another one that came in just then. Can we cater for multiple TMD configurations? Because we have more than one type of product that we're taking to market.
Yeah, absolutely. So the example that I took you through in that design workspace, as I mentioned, you can set up and tailor your own TMD templates, so we can do that for you. I think what we're finding as we do onboarding of customers, again, across a broad range of segments, is that the degree of difficulty of importing those target market templates into Skyjed, it's quite low. There's a tool there. We find to set those up, it takes less than an hour. So they go into a library, if you like, and I just select from that list of those templates in the library. So if I've got one product or one portfolio that I've tailored different target market determination templates for, I just tick the box on the name of that portfolio and it's set up in the design workspace to get going. So degree of difficulty low, time it takes to set that up is less than an hour.
Fantastic. And I think the last one, I think we've got to most of the other ones throughout the presentation, but is there an approval workflow for versioning of TMDs? So
yeah, absolutely. Look, I didn't, I mean, I definitely, if someone, we can sort of take you through and show you examples of that. But one of the key things that I think is really important, that design workspace that I showed you, we also have a monitoring workspace, but in that design workspace, it has a life cycle. So when I say a life cycle, we start off, we then put it in review phase. So we invite people in to do that review, and then we step through to that final stage of getting approval to publish it. So in Skyjed, you can invite in your legal team. Again, to set that up takes less than an hour. And that review and approval is undertaken. And again, I think really importantly that's all documented. You can leave comments there to say, I'm signing off, I'm approving this TMD based on the following conditions, or indeed you can reject it and ask for additional information. So that's all just there in an automated tool to be documented, and you can have that independent sign off. And that's a really important control in the product governance tools that are there.
Certainly is. And the final question that came through today was, how do I share my TMDs to the distribution channel? And that's interesting because that brings us to the slide that we have up on the screen now. So yes, there are various ways you can share your TMD with your distribution channel, and also receive, if you are a distributor, information to and from your issuers. We're going to cover that in the next masterclass. So that there you see on the screen, that's going to be on the 29th of July at 11 a.m. So we'll take you through that whole process. So we've got 3 different ways that we look at sharing that information backwards and forwards between issuers and distributors. So we'll do a deep dive into that next week. So please sign up for that. You can actually get to that now. So as I did mention, we've recorded the session today. I'll be sending out a link to that. that link will take you through to a page called our DDO Toolkit. So there you'll be able to watch today's session. I'll also send a link to sign up for the next masterclass on the 29th. And you'll also be able to download those 2 guides that you saw earlier there. So one is around how to comply with DDO using Skyjed. So it sort of maps all of the obligations to how you would do that in Skyjed. And the other one is a product manager's playbook on your guide to doing DDO compliance. So please download the assets and have a look at the recordings that are sitting there. So, you know, time is running out. There is only about 81 days to go now till we have to be sort of up and running with our system. So if you're interested in seeing Skyjed in action, or you're having a conversation around your product governance or your DDO compliance, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can simply go to skyjed.com, and you can see there, that's our homepage. So that purple button at the bottom, you can just hit request a demo, and we'll be in touch very, very shortly to set up a session around that. We can even organise a test drive if you want to have a look at how Skyjed works in person. We can get you set up and get you a log into that and sort of take you through how all that would work. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. Alternatively, you can contact me directly via email that you'll see on the next screen there, or just via LinkedIn. Come and grab me there. I mean, we're all on LinkedIn. That's how we got to this webinar today, and so I'm pretty easy to find. So it's just Andrew Chamberlain working at Skyjed, and if you ping me there, I'll be more than happy to set up a session for you. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you very much, Lisa. That was terrific. Really, really informative session, and I hope everyone enjoyed that. I've got one more question's just popped in. Wouldn't you believe it? Do you have a different TMD template for bundled products? We might just finish on that one. That was a really late one that just popped in. So do you have a different TMD template for bundled products?
Yes.
That's
yes.
An interesting
as I said, I mean, in that driver library, in that design workspace, to be able to create the driver templates or the templates that you need, that takes about an hour. So we've got industry standard templates in there. We've also have templates that we've designed ourselves. We've got examples of templates that, you know, the consulting teams have created for product teams. And again, in about an hour, we've been able to put those in the driver library. And obviously that also includes that area of bundled products. So yeah, we haven't had an example yet, Andrew. I just sort of close off with saying we haven't had an example of a template that we haven't been able to create pretty quickly and get people up and running, and just make that really easy to select at a per product level. So you can definitely do that at the portfolio level, but as I went through in this these highlights and tips today, being able to do that really quickly and conveniently at a product level is important to save time, but it also means that ongoing monitoring and your product growth and your compliance is going to be more effective if you've got that tailored to the specific needs of your individual products.
Yeah. So yeah, in short, we can import templates that exist today. We can build templates from scratch. We can build customized ones, and that's all part of that onboarding process. We help you map all that out as well. So if you're interested in that, as I mentioned, please get in touch. And otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at the next masterclass on the 29th. So thanks again. Thanks, Lisa. And thanks everyone for joining.
Everyone.